The attack across Peleliu's airfield was the worst combat experience I had endured in the entire world. It surpassed by the intensity of the blast and shock of the bursting shells all the subsequent horrifying ordeals on Peleliu and Okinawa. The heat was incredibly intense. The temperature that day reached 105 degrees in the shade. We were not in the shade. September. Our artillery and 81mm mortars shelled Japanese positions to our front as we prepared to continue the previous day's attack northward on Bloody Nose Ridge. A typical pattern of attack in our company went something like this. Our 2 mortars would fire on certain targets or areas known or thought to harbor the enemy. Our light machine gun squads fired on areas in front of the rifle platoons they were attached to support. Then 2 of the 3 rifle platoons moved out in dispersed order. The remaining platoon was held in company reserve. If the riflemen hit heavy opposition, our 81mm mortars, artillery, tanks, ships, and planes were called on for support. These tactics worked well on Peleliu. Images of the maelstrom at Peleliu had been flashing through my mind, but on Okinawa there was practically no opposition to the landing. When we overcame our astonishment, everybody started laughing and joking. It suddenly dawned on me, though, that it wasn't at all like the Japanese to let us walk ashore unopposed on an island only 350 miles from their homeland. They were obviously pulling some trick, and I began to wonder what they were up to. We spent a great deal of time in combat carrying heavy ammunition on our shoulders to places where it was needed, and breaking it out of the packages and crates. On Okinawa, this was often done under enemy fire, in driving rain, and through knee-deep mud for hours on end. Such activity drove the infantryman wary from the mental and physical stress of combat, almost to the brink of physical collapse. The work was something none of us would forget. It was exhausting, demoralizing, seemingly unending. Our massive artillery, mortar, naval gunfire, and aerial bombardment continued against Wana Draw on our front and Wana Ridge on our left. The Japanese continued to shell everything and everybody in the area, meeting each tank infantry attack with a storm of fire. We have been under plenty of heavy stuff on Peleliu, but not on nearly so massive a scale or for such unending periods of time as at Wana. Okinawa would be the longest and largest battle of the Pacific War. Men struggled and fought and bled in an environment so degrading I believed we had been flung into hell's own cesspool. Eugene Sledge. The increasing dread of going back into action obsessed me. It became the subject of the most torturous and persistent of all the ghastly war nightmares that have haunted me for many, many years. The dream is always the same. Going back up to the lines during the bloody month of May on Okinawa. Eugene Sledge. The conditions taxed the toughest I knew almost to the point of screaming. It is too preposterous to think that men could actually live and fight for days and nights on end under such terrible conditions, and not be driven insane. But I saw much of it there on Okinawa, and to me the war was insanity. Eugene Sledge. We were resigned only to the fact that the Japanese would fight to total extinction on Okinawa, as they had elsewhere, and that Japan would have to be invaded with the same gruesome prospects. Eugene Sledge. We thought the Japanese would never surrender. Many refused to believe it. Sitting in stunned silence, we remembered our dead. So many dead. So many dreams lost in the madness that had engulfed us. Eugene Sledge.